1990s, when it looks like Japan was about to surpass United States. I remember the movie The Rising Sun, right? It's basically, oh my God, these Japanese are coming here, buying our high-rise buildings and taking our white women. We are going to publish the exact route to get to United States. Information went viral on the Chinese social media. And guess what happened next? Nobody could have guessed the number of Chinese migrants that showed up in the U.S. border suddenly went up 6.
There's no one who's worse on the Israel-Palestine than Richie Torres. I give everyone permission to say it. There's no one worse than black politicians.
And he was actually one of the lowest paid. He's like, so he was working for cheap.
Now, appreciate you joining me. This is a fantastic citizen journalist, scholar, educator, writer. I love your work. You and Danny Haifong are like two people who taught me a lot about China. So very excited for this conversation. Thank you for joining us once again on RBN, Carl Zah.
Thank you. I'm honored to be invited.
Yeah, I think we had you on a few times. We had you on the Anti-Imperialist Summit as well. So it's always great to have you on and your expertise, especially regarding imperialism, China as well. I know you have noticed, and this is how I kind of want to start, because I have one hell of a video that I want to show you guys. Apparently, it's China's fault that there's a rise of anti-Semitism. It's China's fault that people don't support a genocide. So just very broadly, to get us started, what is your take on the unhinged anti-China propaganda that we've been seeing? And when I say that, I mean, guys, I could pick a segment from every corporate media channel every day and do one. I pick like one every stream, but there's countless every day. Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, let alone print media. So what's your general take on this messaging and how it affected liberals like Nancy Pelosi?
Well, when United States started to, the capitalists of Wall Street, when they started to hollow out the U.S. manufacturing sector, started back in 1970s and shipping them to East Asia, first to Japan, then Korea and Taiwan, etc. And when in the late 1970s, early 1980s, when China opened up, they thought they seized on a golden opportunity. Here's 1 billion people, a bountiful of cheap labor for Western multinationals. And that was how they want China to stay. They want China to stay in that role to provide cheap labor for the multinationals to produce goods they can market everywhere. But something happened in the last 40 years as China started to climb up starting to climb up the value chain. Now the Chinese brands are becoming competitive. The Chinese EV cars are starting to dominate the market. Even Chinese social media platform like TikTok is being adopted worldwide. So suddenly, all these multinationals who were before were rushing to China to make money, to take all the U.S. factories to move to China, and suddenly they realize, oh my God, China is a competitor. China is eating our lunch, and what's even worse is China is a non-white nation that suddenly is getting industrialized. And now see, this happened with Japan before, but Japan was a U.S. occupied country. U.S. have military station in Japan despite all the Japanese protests. And in the 1980s, 1990s, when it looks like Japan was about to surpass United States, there were a lot of anti-Japan hate back then. Because I remember, I came to United States in 1990. I remember the movie The Rising Sun, right? It's basically, oh my God, these Japanese are coming here, buying our high-rise buildings and taking our white women, right? And that's what the movie was about, The Rising Sun. And the people were smashing Japanese cars, etc. Then U.S. imposed Plaza Accord on Japan, basically crippled Japanese economy and Japanese future growth. And so Japan was neutered. Japan was no longer a threat. But China is a whole different beast, because first of all, China is magnitude larger than Japan. Right now, the Chinese economy, but in the power PPP terms, is already larger than the U.S. economy, and it's approaching U.S. economy in the nominal dollar terms. So this is why there's a widespread panic in Washington. They feel, okay, oh my God, China is overtaking us. They're going to take out our number one spot, and that's not acceptable. Especially if China, this non-white nation is now going to break through the Western hegemony that has dominated the world for the last 500 years. So there's a lot of unease about China, and the political elite in Washington, both parties are capitalizing on that. They're capitalized on a lot of fear and anxiety of Americans who are experiencing. Basically, they're bearing the brunt of globalization, because it's American jobs that's being shipped overseas. It's a manufacturing America that's being hollowed out. And when the people are facing uncertain economic future, your corporate media don't want them to blame the Wall Street types who actually moved those factories to East Asia. The much easier scapegoat is China. It's like China stole our technology, China stole our jobs, right? Of course, China never came to the United States and pointing a gun to Steve Jobs' head and say, you got to build Apple phone in China. Or they didn't come like point a shotgun at Elon Musk, say, you got to build Tesla in China. These capitalists decide to go to China because they want to utilize the cheaper labor there, and later they realize, oh, China is a big market. We can do business in China. They're always chasing the bottom line. But yet the corporate media don't want you to focus on the people who are pulling strings behind Washington, and they want you to hate the immigrants and hate the Chinese. and so that's the simplistic take of kind of anti-China hysteria going on right now.
Yeah, that was very well said. And I'm very happy that you mentioned the fact that they despise the idea of a non-white country being on top. That's very important to understand, fam. Like how many propaganda segments have we done on this show, guys, where their objection to China, because I was like, what is the objection? Like, why are you guys so hateful towards them? And Carl, they would be on Fox News and they'll say, China is trying to expand their influence in the region. This is why they're a threat. So they want to grow their economy, and that's why you hate them? And they rely on the fear of Americans of the other and the other dominating. I don't know if you've seen these headlines. Like there have been a lot of these crazy headlines of how China is sending military-aged men to cross the border. I've seen stories about how China is sending fentanyl across the border to softly kill Americans. Have you seen those, Carl, or am I crazy?
This is another case of projection. What's the root cause of the opiate crisis in the United States? Is people are being devastated. The family structure is weakened, and people are being devastated by loss of jobs, loss of future prospects, and they're seeking escape through drugs. And guess who is pushing these drugs on working class American? Sacklers. They have been convicted. These pharmaceutical companies knowingly getting Americans addicted to various prescription drugs, and the fentanyl. They say, oh, China is pushing the fentanyl onto United States. The reality is, what China produces is a chemical precursors for pharmaceutical ingredients. Now the world's majority supply of pharmaceuticals is produced in China. Now, some of these chemicals can also be used to produce fentanyl. So you have cartels in Mexico, for example, importing these chemicals into Mexico, where they're being used to make fentanyl and shipped to the United States. Chinese law enforcement and U.S. law enforcement used to have a cooperational agreement where the Chinese side will trace once these chemicals being sold by the Chinese pharmaceutical companies, where they go, and so to prevent them from falling into the hands of the drug cartels. This was a long-standing agreement, and until last 5 years, when Trump and starting with Trump administration went crazy with all this anti-China sanctions one after another, and that's when China decided, you know what? Why are we tracing the sales of pharmaceuticals for you? This is your problem. This is your problem. It's out of our hands. We're not doing this for you anymore. You know, like you are depending on us to tracing where these chemical shipments are going. Well, you can do it yourself since you are slacking sanction on us. So this actually caused the shipment of these chemical precursor to skyrocket because they're no longer being monitored. And now and so again, this is another case of United States is picking a rock and smashing its own foot about the Chinese migrants coming through south of the border. So people can go back to 2022, like December 2022. You'll find articles from Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Radio Free Asia. They're reporting the Chinese are fleeing the strict COVID lockdown in China, and we are going to publish the exact route they use to get to the United States. So they publish the exact route. So the Chinese are flying to Istanbul, and then from Istanbul they're flying to Ecuador, and from Ecuador they're taking they're getting into Panama, and from Panama they hire people to take them through the impassable jungle, Darien Gap, and then they eventually get to Mexico, and from the Mexico they just go straight across the U.S. border. That information went viral on the Chinese social media, and guess what happened next? Nobody could have guessed the number of Chinese migrants that showed up in the U.S. border suddenly went up sixfold. You know, wow. You went up from like 2,000. You went up from 2,000 in 2021 to like 12,000 in 2023. It's the first half of 2023. Okay, 20,000, like 10,000, 20,000 is actually a drop in the bucket compared to the entire Chinese population, and even a drop in the bucket compared to all the total number of migrants that's coming across the southern border. But Chinese, that's a sensational part. Yeah. Chinese, and also like they have to go through the Darien Gap, which is this like just tropical jungle in the Panama that separates the North and South America. There's no road, so you have to be a strong person to survive that journey. You know, you're not gonna have like elderly and women and children. So yeah, it's mostly young men that makes that trek, trek through the jungles. So yeah, that's why. Okay, sure, military-age men. You know, like they make it sounds like China is trying to infiltrate the United States.
Exactly.
The secret plot. Look, if Chinese spies want to get into the United States, they will just get a visa. You know, do you think the Chinese guys will have problem getting a visa into the United States? That they have to go through this roundabout way, flying halfway around the world, and walk through the most dense jungle in the world just to reach the United States? That's not a very efficient way of doing business. You know, if you think Chinese are smart, that's the last mistake. But yeah, there are Chinese people coming over, but you know, like. We're talking about even with the recent increase, we're talking about somewhere around 20,000 a year. I mean, it's not. I mean, compared to the total number of migrants or total number of Chinese population, it's really minuscule. And again, this is sensationalized because right now there is the anti-China hysteria going on in the United States. So. You know, anything can be playing on China, like Nancy Pelosi blaming the Chinese for.
Yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on that. I know you saw that. I don't know if you saw the video earlier, but I played. Nancy
first of all, some of them are like, oh my God, why is Nancy Pelosi being so racist? The thing is, most of the protests are actually white women, but she is telling them to go back to China, where your headquarters is from. But just a couple of years ago, Nancy Pelosi was on air. She said, ceasefire is Putin's plot. right?
Yeah.
So what they're really saying is people calling stop to genocide, are supported by Russia and China, because apparently Russia and China's position is to stop the genocide, right? The flip side of that, U.S. policy, of course, is pro-genocide. You are un-American if you would want the genocide to stop. So that's what she's really saying, and it's absolutely insane.
Yeah, that's been the position of the Biden administration his entire term. If you want a ceasefire in Ukraine, you are Putin's puppet. That's what they said. If you want a ceasefire in Israel, you're also a Putin puppet. You're also a Moss agent. You're also a friend of the Chinese Communist Party. Like, as we say, I've seen you say it before, and I've been preaching this on my show. The United States is by far the most propagandized country in the world. I'm facing pressure from people who criticize me when they say Israel is number one. I'm like, yeah, I'll take 1A and 1B, and then the UK being the number two. I think the United States is worse than Israel because they're more sophisticated. Israel's propaganda is pretty childlike. Yeah.
Israel propaganda at this moment is just showcasing war crime in front of the world. They're like, Israel propaganda is literally tweeting out war crimes like every minute, like the war crimes that Israel is committing on the Palestinian civilian population. Yeah, they don't even care at this point because they know United States got its back. Like that leaked video from Bibi Netanyahu from like 10 years ago, and Netanyahu just basically said, look, you don't need to worry about Americans. Americans are gullible people. We can manipulate them, and 80% of Americans support us anyway, so we'll get to do what we want. And
שהמחיר יהיה כבד מנשוא, כרגע המחיר לא כבד מנשוא, התקפה רבת היקף על הרשות הפלסטינית. תמיד המפחד שהכל מתמוטט.
לא פוחדים, מתעסקים להם יראו לנו את הפיישת וצחוק ופשוט הם לא פוחדים לצחוק.
זה מה שמביא אותם
רגע, אבל אז השוק מהעולם יגיד מה אתם כובשים? אתה לא מפחד מהעולם, ביבי.
במיוחד היום עם אמריקה, אני יודע מה זה אמריקה. אמריקה זה דבר שאפשר להזיז אותו בקלות, להזיז לכיוון הנכון. לא יכניעו לו.
אז שאם אנחנו עושים איזה משהו, אז הם...
יש שווה, אז נניח שהם אומרים משהו. אז אמרו, 80% מהאמריקאים תומכים בנו. זה אבסורד. לא פחדתי להתאבד שם. לא פחדתי להתאבד עם קליטון. לא פחדתי להתאבד עם אופן. מה היו הסכמי אוסלו? הסכמי אוסלו שהכנסת חתמה עליהם.
Right now, actually, polls after polls shows that 70% of Americans want ceasefire in Gaza immediately. It's a politician in Washington. They're so out of touch, like Biden, Biden, Pelosi. Their best, their peak year was probably like 1980s in the last century. That's their mindset is stuck on. So they're still operating on that mindset, and they're totally disconnected with the voter base. Right now, the Democratic Party's tactic is to scare people into vote for them. It's like, oh, if you don't vote for us, then Trump is going to win. And they're trying to shame the Muslim voters to vote for Biden, which is outrageous. It's like, oh, you if you don't vote for us, look at what Trump will do to you. Look, right now, you are aiding and abetting a genocide in Palestine where 25,000 people have been killed, mostly women and children. And at the same time, you are asking why you're not voting for us. This is crazy. This is like, I don't know. I think the Democrats will lose this election. I mean,
we are about to see an historic landslide. This is my early prediction. You guys know I make bold predictions. Electoral politics, I don't care if I'm right or wrong because it's a joke to me. But we are witnessing a historic fracturing of the Democratic Party coalition. And with that said, I want to transition this segment. This segment what I call Biden versus protesters. Biden versus the Muslim community. You guys see the title of the video. Kamala Harris, their campaign, I don't know if you saw this. I saw this like an hour before the stream, and had to change the title and everything. They're banning Muslims flat out from their campaign events now. Like there's a Muslim group that was banned for Kamala Harris campaign event because they assumed that they would protest him. There's a lot of fracturing. There's 1,000 pastors that represent hundreds of thousands of Black people that finally called for a ceasefire, which is great to see because I dragged the Black church and AME Emmanuel for allowing Genocide Joe to give a campaign speech. So I'm glad. I'm very happy to see pastors turn away from this. But I'll play this video because there's a problem, and you mentioned this before. So I want to get your general reaction to this. Feel free to interrupt anytime as I'm doing this presentation, Carl. But I'm gonna show you guys some activists, and this is 2 days ago, I believe. Pro-Palestinian activists interrupted Kamala Harris during her speech. So I'm building to because all these protests, it was going to lead the Biden administration for saying ban all Muslims from their campaign events. I know it seems crazy, but I'm telling the truth. Just stay patient. Listen to this video.
You see that the administration is working for reproductive freedoms, but how can that be true when the United States is complicit in the destruction of hospitals and schools in Gaza and then content murdering? Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! You would call for a ceasefire now!
They have no idea how bad it's going to get, Carl. No idea. No idea. There's going to be no public safe space for them. But Carl, feel free to chime in if you want to add anything.
I mean, the only reason Biden became the president is because he's not Trump, right?
Yeah.
And so this is the only thing he's running on. But now they're looking at Biden's like, dude, you're worse than Trump, man. you're like at least. Trump, at least Trump is a terrible person. I'm not pro-Trump, but at least during Trump's tenure, he hasn't started much new foreign wars. But here we have Biden embroiled in a proxy war in Ukraine against Russia. We have him not only shipping weapons and munitions to Israel to support the genocide, but now they're bombing Yemen, and now they're gonna take the war to Iran. They're talking about hitting back against Iran. This is crazy. Like,
crazy, man.
Look, how about now starting a World War III? I know you live a long time, Biden. I know you have lived a long time, but the rest of us have no interest to go out in a bang. And so right now, they just don't understand. They will think, okay, people will have no choice but to vote for the Democratic Party. But they forgot people can just not vote. People can just sit home and guess what? And when the Republican voter base turn out in drove, that just means the Democrats are going to lose. They're going to lose very badly.
So not only do you have Democrats like straight up spitting in the face of their coalition, they're not pissing Republicans off with this. like this is your point, Carl. It's not Trump people that's furious. It's their coalition, and then they call them Chinese agents and Putin puppets. I mean,
you know why? Because they're so used to have the U.S. population propagandized that they think any kind of independent thoughts, any kind of critical thinking it has to be manipulated from somewhere else. It's like 100% projection. People talk about they talk about freedom. They talk about again, we know it's all BS. Like how they try to literally they're trying to filter out Muslims from attending Biden's talks, and they're saying, but if Trump get elected, it's going to get much, much worse. Look, people have already experiencing Biden and Trump. You guys all suck.
Yeah.
It's like pox on both of your houses, man. And this is what electoral politics get to us. This is why a lot of young people are totally disillusioned with electoral politics today. Eric Lee said, in China, you cannot change the party, but you can change the policies. In the United States, you can change the party, You can't change the policies. This is what people don't understand. What they don't understand is, what we call the electoral democracy in the United States. It's a process. It's a process. Okay, great. But the whole aim of the process is it's supposed to give you results.
Yeah.
But right now they're like, oh, but look, it's great. We have election. We have this process. Well, where's the results? Where's the outcome that people want to see? It's bullshit when they promise everything and as soon as they get elected, they go turn their back on everything that they have promised. And this has gone on again and again. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So I mean,
that's why you see Russia. You have Putin with around a 75 to 80% approval rating, and you have Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party, which is popular. I don't know their approval rating on top of my head, but I know they're very popular because they actually do the bidding of the people. And like you said here, we don't have a democracy. Go ahead.
Or don't forget about approval reading for the leaders because people are going to say, "Oh, that they're manipulated, whatever." Look at surveys of people about their optimism for their future.
Well,
you will see the optimism shown by Chinese people about their future, like just blow the numbers in the U.S. and the West out of the water because the Chinese people believe that their life will get better in next 5 years, in next 10 years. And for most of us who are familiar with the United States, we know that's not true. It really hasn't improved. Life really hasn't improved.
In the United States, if you guys think we have a democracy, name me one election where Goldman Sachs lost. Goldman Sachs is the undefeated champion of democracy. Was it 10-0, 11-0 in my lifetime? This is my lifetime. Name me, how do you get rid of Raytheon? Raytheon, 9-0 in my lifetime. I think there's been 9 elections. They
ran a pretty good campaign. You have to say, I was for Obama, right? Like before because I believed in change.
I was too.
And then I realized, wait. He's just literally the black face of the white establishment. I mean, the guy is just like he's a perfect spokesperson for the Wall Street.
Black politicians are the worst. I will say it. I give all my allies permission to say it. There's no one who's worse on the Israel-Palestine than Richie Torres. He just blocked me today. I finally got the block. Because he was saying he had a tweet where he was saying how great it is that we cut UNRWA aid. And I was like, look at this psychopath. And he blocked me. And so Richie Torres, Akeem Jeffries, Eric Adams, they're the worst. I give everyone permission to say it. There's no one worse than black politicians.
I think someone did dig up the numbers of the donations that Torres was receiving from the AIPAC. And he was actually one of the lowest paid. He's like, so he was working for cheap. He was working for Israel on the cheap. I mean,
dude, that's so embarrassing, man.
If you're going to be a hustler, at least ask for more money, man. I mean, Jesus.
That's a great point because that's why it's embarrassing. The squad sold out for cheap. The squad sold out and they don't take corporate money. They don't take corporate money and they still support the Ukraine war. How did that make sense? The AIPAC tries to get rid of them every election and they still vote for the Iron Dome. So at least neoliberals and neocons sell out expensive. Like they cheap. That's a funny point to